So looking at another student that I have here, also accepted to Stanford, also had a very similar statistics to the last student that I demonstrated, GPA of 3.98, weighted GPA of 4.5, and an SAT 1 of 1530. So again, as we have already established, test scores, GPA, important factors, but we also want to look beyond that. For his courses, in addition to the 11 AP courses that he took while at high school, he also took 5 college courses. So that looked really, really excellent on his application. He did have 5 scores that were presented to the college, and then again took 6 AP classes in his senior year. So again, senior year, very important. He also had extensive leadership and volunteering. He had many different roles, as you can see here: president, vice president, publicity, secretary. So not everyone has to be a president. You don't have to be only vice president or president. Any role looks really, really excellent to colleges. They love that students are just in the leadership positions, that they are working hard, and that they are actively showing an interest in their campus and in their community. So he was very much able to show that with his multiple leadership roles. Again, he was very, very active in his community as well, with a lot of volunteering. It is, I do suggest to almost all of my students that they have at least about 100 hours of volunteering or community service throughout the school year, more if possible. And many of my students do actually have even more than that, anywhere between 150 to 250 hours. So for those top tiered colleges, I do usually recommend to be more in that realm, looking at 200 to 250 hours. But at a minimum, I do like to see my students with about 100 hours of volunteering. So again, extensive volunteering for him. A big highlight on his application was his internships. So he had several internships. One was a paid internship that was through an immunology lab. So he was able to work there for a summer. And additionally, he did some research-based internships as well. So I think these two factors really, really were strong components of his application. And that is definitely something we absolutely work on, is trying to secure these types of activities for our students or alongside our students, to push them in these directions of looking for these highly competitive activities. The research-based internship he did was a very, very highly competitive program, a very selective program. So that looked really excellent on his application. And also it did strongly support his interests. As you can see, his major that he selected was chemistry, so in the life sciences. So his internship, which was also in the life sciences, and again, his research definitely helped out in supporting his selected major. Very, very important. In addition to all of this, he also had numerous art awards. So that was where he had more of his rewards, actually, even more than in the life sciences. So again, he chose chemistry, still a difficult major, but it's a little bit less difficult than some choices like computer science. So he did want to do this life science direction, but I strongly urged him, let's also make a very big note about your art. I wanted to emphasize art on his application because that is where his awards came from. He clearly had a demonstrated interest. And so this was a big focus of our application, his art. And we also made sure to put together a very nice art portfolio. I think this had a huge impact on his application overall, and definitely on his acceptance to Stanford. So when he applied to many, many different schools. He chose things like UMich or University of Michigan. He chose lots of different research colleges, Boston College, Boston University, and he did have several Ivy Leagues. At the majority of the Ivy Leagues, he was waitlisted. Again, that very, very, very competitive major can have that effect. But even at the University of Michigan, even at some of the other colleges, he also was either waitlisted or denied because, again, that competitive major can make things very, very difficult. He was accepted to Boston University, which is an amazing research university. So I think his research really stood out at a program like that. And ultimately, he was accepted to Stanford. So I do think the things that stood out for this application included the fact that he was able to demonstrate different aspects of himself. Again, that art, I think, was a really big highlight for his overall application. So that was one of the things that I think helped him the most when it came particular to Stanford. So again, there are so many additional activities, additional factors to consider for this summer. I definitely did not list all of them out, but there are so many elements that we can add on to an application, that we can build a portfolio with when we're looking at each individual student. So things like an art portfolio, things like highlighting those art awards, putting an emphasis even in our essays on our interest in art, on his passion for art. There's many, many different avenues that we can select. There's many different pathways to highlight these different aspects that are unique to the student. So again, he chose a very challenging major, chemistry, but I really do feel that the fact that we emphasize this other underlying passion that he had no interest in, or he didn't really plan to highlight this. When I mentioned art to him, he was saying, oh, it's kind of just a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing. It's something I love, but I have no interest in applying as an art major. I don't want to really do art in college, which is, again, okay, not a problem. But I think this really made him stand out. This made him a much more unique candidate, a much more interesting candidate, that he had these other aspects to himself, that he wasn't a student who just liked life science. He had these other interests. And that was a huge focus on his essays as well. So that was something that we really investigated, we really dig deep in, was this idea of life sciences and humanities, how they work together. And so those are all, again, such important factors, such important things that we should be reviewing now. You should be thinking about your essay topics. You should be thinking about how to present yourself as a unique individual. What can you highlight? What are your special attributes? What can you bring that's different from all of the other life science or computer science or engineering students? Every student has a unique factor, and that's what we really, really want to highlight. So the overall many, many different components of the application, those test scores, those activities, the volunteering, the, everything that is comprised in the application process, we want to look at that as a whole. And then we want to pick out the best major for every single student. We want to pick out the major that correlates with the colleges that your student are interested in. And then we want to figure out the best ways to highlight the most interesting aspects of each student to give them the best opportunity at their chosen schools. So that's just a little rundown, again, of some of the different ways that we should be spending our summer. So again, very, very important to consider all of those factors I listed. I'm so sorry. I'm sure I put up that slide very quickly. I could try to go back to it, but again, there's so many different elements of the application process we should be considering right now. And there's many, many more that we can individually help our students with. So that's just a couple rundowns of a couple different students and a very brief overview of the many activities we should be doing during summer. So